Everyone, sorry about that loss of connection. We're going to try again. Okay, let me get Jordan back. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try again. So again, sorry for the lack of... Oh, there we go. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Sorry, I think I was like battling between two internets.
Oh, no worries.
Maybe I'll just do a little reintroduction just for those who maybe lost us. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm speaking with Jordan Marie Daniel today, which I'm very excited about your career as a runner, but also an organizer of Rising Hearts. And I am talking from today Kume lands, which obviously is now called the United States, formerly Turtle Island, and I am very excited to be back in this conversation with you. And I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, my name is Jordan Marie Brings, who White Horses Daniel. I am Koichasha Lakota, citizen of Koichasha Oyate, the Lower Rural Indian Reservation in central South Dakota. Our tribe sits right on the Missouri River. I currently live and work on occupied Tonga lands at the moment, and I'm a community organizer. I wear many hats, a consultant, do a lot of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work, founder and organizer of Rising Hearts, professional runner, and work at UCLA School of Medicine. So I definitely know how to stay busy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, just such a mixed roles you've taken on. I think that's an interesting. I'd love to hear more too about your work at UCLA. And I wanted to say happy birthday, which I know I said
Thank
last, but happy
you.
birthday. Thanks for joining on this day. I hope I'm not interrupting your celebrations, but
No.
good. Yeah, so I'd first just to love to hear sort of what drives you, every day and why you do what you do and how you've kind of got to where you are and yeah, not just what you do as you just said, but sort of who you do it for and what inspires you would be great to hear.
Yeah, so what inspires me at the end of the day is my family and our next generations and the people that I'm really grateful to be working with, whether that's in a professional platform like UCLA and doing that needed work and in the frontline work happening. And I really like to refer this work, this important work that we all do, as the heart work, because really at the end of the day, it's the community, it's the people, it's our next generations and our future that really motivate me and inspire me to keep doing all of the work that I get to do and really grateful to be doing. And, what inspired me to really do this, I've known since I was in eighth grade that I wanted to be an advocate for Native people. And in eighth grade, I didn't know what that meant. I just was like, I want to be in DC because that's what it represented to me as like, oh, be in DC, make policies, make change, and, make life better for our communities. And so that we can be seen and like heard and have a seat at the table. So for me, that meant I'm going to be a lobbyist or I'm going to be the Indian Health Services Director and work on, health care and access and wellness. And so that dream finally came true several years ago. I got to move to DC, started working there, and just really started networking and doing as much outreach as possible to connect with other Indigenous people, from all over the world, not just Indigenous to Turtle Island, North America. And that really helped me connect back into this community and really started taking a proactive approach of understanding climate injustice and learning a lot more about pipelines. And that's where my work really began, is advocating to stop the KXL pipeline, which is great news. It's been canceled for right now. And then that slowly merged into the Dakota Access Pipeline, which is really, I have to give all the credit and thanks and appreciation and love for all of the Native youth that ran over 2,000 miles to Washington, D.C. to oppose that pipeline back in 2016. And that was the first time that I got to organize an event to welcome them to Piscataway Indigenous lands to help elevate their message and their voice and just create meetings and all these opportunities for them to be part of, to have their voices heard. And they're the ones that inspired me to become a community organizer. I always wanted to avoid it because I was like, that's so stressful.
Yeah.
I give so much like appreciation and props to community organizers who do this every single day. But when I started seeing them being bit and attacked out in Standing Rock on September 3rd and after that, and all of the violence and injustice that had happened, I wanted to hold myself accountable as a relative, as a future ancestor, to do more. And so that's what inspired me to stick with community organizing. And I just fell in love with it. And it just brought me closer to our relatives, our allies, to have these discussions, to have these opportunities, to build bridges, to cultivate meaningful relationships with each other, and to have a better understanding and really fight and strive for intersectionality so that we do have a better future across all races, across all groups, for all people. So that way we're not having these injustices and losing loved ones and facing this violence and racism. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I live for. And that's what is the most important thing to me right now is all that.
And it is like have that dual approach to obviously the government side of things, the lobbying, but then that real true connection to community. And I think often when it feels like really overwhelming, the possibility for change, or it feels
Yeah.
like you've hit a dead end, I always think that just reconnecting on a local level or organizing or bringing people together is like you completely get that charge again. You like recharge as to like
Yeah.
why you're doing things, which I think has been difficult obviously during this time. But I think, to have the space like this and the internet is kind of amazing how much further information and organizing can often
Yeah.
sort of spread. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I think also, too, it's incredibly important when you do have the opportunities to be invested in your community. You get to see firsthand what is happening. It's easy to read an article, to read a title of something and be kind of like enraged and like mad about what is happening. But it's not until you actually get to meet people in the community coming from these groups, coming from those that have experienced this violence and racism and these injustices or have lost loved ones. It's being able to listen and learn from them and be at the grassroots level of understanding, the really corrupt and the corrupt infrastructure that has been created, that we as BIPOC people, Two-Spirits, LGBTQ, non-binary, Asian, Jewish, Muslim, like we don't benefit from these systems. And so when you can be as an ally, or even just anyone, have a chance to learn from the community by showing up to those organizing events or information panels or virtual panels or whatever it is, and have the chance to sit and listen and really hear coming from their voice and perspective, I think that's what allows for that growth, that being informed and having a more empathetic connection to seeing what is happening, to feeling and hearing what is happening. And hopefully that just motivates more and more people to become allies, to be friends with our communities, and to really stand and fight with us.
Yeah, and to take that, to show up, whether even like you're saying, that's a virtual event, to show up and be part of the audience and to listen, I think is, and for so long, I guess there's been so much assumption as to what people need, rather than actually sitting with someone and asking and hearing their story and what they actually,
Yeah.
are interested to push or need. I think there's been this kind of so much assumption and so much, stereotype around kind of aid or organizing or help or organizations that is this image of this like white savior essentially, that's a perpetuated image that needs to completely, and I feel like is being reformed and changed by having this intersectional dialogue and bringing everyone to to the table is so important. So I'm excited to also hear more about your running practice and just your career as an athlete, as a runner. And am I right in thinking this is your family, like other people in your family and generation have been professional runners?
Yes, to an extent.
To an extent,
I'm a
right.
fourth generation runner. My great grandfather was long distance. My grandfather was middle. And it wasn't until after he had passed away, at his funeral, Billy Mills, who is the Native American Olympic gold medalist in the 10K, he was one of our pallbearers and our speakers for his funeral. And he told us that my grandfather actually beat him in a race. And I never knew that. Like,
Yeah.
you think of Billy Mills and I think of my grandfather who I grew up with, and like he took me on my first run.
Hmm.
Just really spoke to how humble he was, and just for us to find that out after the fact, and just was like, I can't believe you actually beat Billy Mills, and just having that story and sharing it with Billy was really beautiful, and just I don't know, it just showed us the importance and the humility that my grandfather had.
Yeah.
And he was an incredible runner. He's been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he really had some really big goals, and some life situations got in the way and started happening. So it prevented him from actually going to the Olympic trials. And then my mom was a sprinter. She was training for the '88 Olympic trials, and I came along. So I kind of ruined that one for her, but it's been my dream forever to make it to the Olympic trials.
Hmm.
And it's been really hard trying to get that dream because at the end of the day, my community, my relatives, and what I fight for comes first.
Hmm.
And I've been really lucky with the coaches that I've had and the sponsorships that I've had. Has been really understanding and recognizing that like that comes first, and we'll try and do our best with the training. I've had some great PRs, had great times, and but at the same time, it can be stressful and make it a
Yeah.
little bit hard. So it's my goal to go to the Olympic trials this next round.
Hmm.
We were supposed to do that last year, and then I got injured right before it. But yeah, that's been my dream, is to make the Marathon Olympic trials so that someone from the Brings Three White Horses family actually gets there. I hope it's me. If not, hopefully it can be, my kids one day.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's one of my biggest dreams. And being a professional runner, right now I'm sponsored by Rabbit and Ultra and Ultimate Direction. And it's just an incredible opportunity for representation as an
Hmm.
athlete. And growing up, I wanted to see my mom or like my grandfather on those platforms, or I wanted to see someone that looked like me and came from my
Hmm.
communities on those covers, on those platforms. And I'm really, really grateful that this past fall for Trail Runner Magazine and Runner's World, that I had the opportunity to be on the cover. And that was not just a win for me, it's a win for our communities. It's a
Hmm.
win for POC people and athletes and youth to see themselves, and that you have every right to be here where I am. And just I get to be part of the work that's helping to do a lot of the dismantling and rebuilding, and making sure that the running community, the outdoor community, is more inclusive and supportive and safe, and just having a lot of these kinds of discussions all across the board. And so my sponsors have been absolutely incredible in supporting not just me, but my community, and giving back through the COVID relief program that I run,
Hmm.
as well as a variety of other initiatives that I'm doing. And so, like I said, it's been about family, legacy, tradition. Running is medicine, and running is
Hmm.
prayer. And running is representation for our next generations, but also now it's been intersected with advocacy for me.
Hmm.
Now, my running platform, I am doing prayer running and dedicating my miles to someone who has been taken from our community, from their family, missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, trans, Two Spirit, and relatives. And just helping to give visibility, helping to get their names back out there again, because we face a lot of issues of the media not covering these stories, and
Hmm.
having their names out in public and supporting the families and the advocates doing this work. It's about me creating this space to be intentional, to give back through prayer, and to let them know that I'm one of many that's thinking about them, that search for them, that's Googling them, and trying to do my best to be an advocate, to be a voice, to speak to this injustice that is still continuously happening every single day. But also in intersecting it with giving visibility to Black lives, and making sure that I can be someone that can help, like I keep talking about, building community and building bridges, and making sure intersectionality is there, that it's okay to be fighting for your own people. And that's something that I really was focused in, but it kind of put me in this kind of silo where I
Hmm.
wasn't really paying attention to the injustice outside of my own communities. And I feel like that's what happens a lot. We kind of get focused on just our own community, and that's okay. And sometimes that's all that's needed. But I think for us to have a better future that's intersectional, that is transformational, that is fighting for justice is when we all can listen to each other and learn from each other and be allies to each other. So that way we do have a better future. And so running has changed for me in so many ways. And it's now a new journey and a new way running forward that I'm really grateful to be doing.
Yeah, I think that's what I've really responded to and been so inspired by your practice. Is it's so much more beyond what we often see or get to hear about someone's kind of, draw a reason to take on such a dedicated practice that is, running and being an athlete. It obviously takes so much dedication, and then to dedicate that beyond just, the kind of the statistic side of kind of, your minutes or your lengths or whatever you're kind of doing it for, but that dedication to your relatives or those who have been lost, I think is just so powerful. And I think you are doing everything that you're setting out to do and be a platform and a voice for. I feel like I definitely feel it through the work that you're doing. And I think I would love to hear how that kind of inspired. I know you've been doing, I mean, you've also, in terms of, you've been doing different runs through your Rising Hearts organization and different Indigenous wellness series. I'd love to hear how you're kind of interested to take it beyond, I guess, your own enjoyment of how much you gain from running, and how you've put that through into Rising Hearts, and just a bit more about that organization would be wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Rising Hearts began in 2016, inspired by the youth, seeing a lack of representation of Indigenous voices in those community organizing events happening. And it kind of was just a way for me to insert myself into those groups and conversations of those organizing it, asking where was the land acknowledgement? Where were our Piscataway relatives? Why aren't they on this platform? Why aren't we hearing from them? Why aren't we seeing Indigenous voices in these spaces speaking to Dakota Access Pipeline, speaking to Indigenous sovereignty and treaty rights? And so that really began as just being able to network and build collaborative partnerships with other organizing groups. And luckily that turned into co-founding other coalitions as a community in DC, to really expanding and helping to organize marches and rallies. And so Rising Hearts now has transitioned into more programming, being able to support community, not just through community organizing events, but building community to focus on our health and wellness, especially in this last year. In October, I started Indigenous Wellness Through Movement to really celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day weekend. That was simultaneously also organizing the Indigenous Peoples Day virtual 5K, 10K, and half marathon. And I just wanted to see wellness teachers that looked like me, and wanted to provide that space for them for 4 days. And it went so well. And my intention was to only do this once. And then the response from those that had signed up and participated was so overwhelmingly like beautiful and supportive. They're like, hey, this was so great to learn from another Indigenous instructor. Can you do more of these? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to try and build something out of this, and literally like building a sidewalk as I'm walking on it at the same time. And so now we're in month 5. We had over 2,000 people like register for January's classes, and it's continuously growing. We're offering scholarships to those that need a yoga mat or yoga blocks. And we've transitioned the whole new registration site and platform to be hopefully more user friendly, but making sure that when we think of wellness, it doesn't have to be the typical yoga or Pilates or anything like that. We're offering boxing classes. We're offering beadwork classes. Next month, we're going to be offering cooking classes. Next month, we're also going to have a talking circle of just like, let's just come out virtually together. Let's share a dinner, bring your own food to this virtual meeting, and let's just talk and chat. Because sometimes that's good medicine too, to be able to laugh and to be able to just have a conversation with somebody. And so we've done everything from safety training and planning. How can we protect ourselves, especially as women of color who go out for a run? And so we're trying to offer a variety of different classes for everyone, that it's all inclusive and supportive. It's donation based. We have closed captioning included, and it's just really something to build community, to learn from people who may look like us, but to also have teachers coming from other communities as well to build allyship and having them teach their medicine with us as well. So it's going really well. And it's kind of was on a spur of the moment type thing, and it's continuing. And it's been really beautiful to learn from so many other practices and to be able to support them and compensate them for their time. And then through the virtual running events, that was all started. I partnered with Seeding Sovereignty, who does amazing work, and I've been able to work with them through a variety of other projects in the last few years. And we organized the virtual run, Running for the Health of All Nations, because we were trying to fundraise money so that way we can procure masks and face shields and hand sanitizer and everything in between to support our relatives and communities. Because at that time, especially tribes weren't receiving the help that they needed. And so they partnered with me. We raised, I think, nearly $20,000 that we were able to support back into our programming. So now Rising Hearts has a COVID relief program that we've been doing and still sending out masks for those that request it and need it. And then we hosted, several more after that. And we currently have one right now. They're running on Native Lands virtual 5K, 10K half marathon. And that's all part of community building. And Rising Hearts is never going to be the sole recipient of the funds that are raised. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that we can support the other hardworking organizations and individuals that are part of these virtual runs. So I've been really excited to extend these invitations and ask these other organizing members if they want to receive the registration recipients funding amounts. And so like this one, the 5K registration fees goes towards the International Indigenous Youth Council of LA. And then the 10K registration fees goes towards Run for Breonna Taylor, also now known as Unity Runners. And they've been running a 10K and a 5K every single day since June to fight for Breonna Taylor and to support her family. And then Rising Hearts receives the half marathon. And then we have a trifecta option. You can sign up for all three, and then it gets evenly split. But this is all about being able to support the heart work, the community, and to be intersectional. And it's just been a really great experience. And I think right now we just reached nearly $22,000 that we've raised through this virtual running event. And it's also allowing people that are signing up to learn about the Indigenous lands that they are on, because it's the big call out for how can we make the running community more safe and inclusive and respectful. And so this supplements the initiative that was launched to call on race directors, event directors, to start hosting land acknowledgements at their races. And my big goal is to get like Boston Marathon, like New York City Marathon, like these big platforms, but to also go the extra mile further in giving back to the local Indigenous communities or organizations in their area where those races are being held, to donate a portion of the amount back into their programming, or to donate comped free entries for Indigenous people in that area to participate in, to donate the leftover food and water to food banks and homeless shelters and safe housing, and so much more. So it's a big commitment. You have to commit to the first one, which is land acknowledgements, but you're also asked to commit to at least one or the remaining 4 after that to be part of this initiative and to be a partner with us. So this is all part of building community. This is part of, creating a platform that could be more informative for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. And I think as, even if you're not a runner and you're not trying to sort of like, get into this from a professional angle, I think even just for anyone listening who may be interested to do this, virtual running, and I think just the physical acknowledgement of running on native lands, just an act within itself is a very, very significantly different way to look at things, to be mindful of where you are treading, where you're walking, whose land it is. And I think, the land acknowledgements at these huge arenas of events like marathons is so important, because it just really brings it into the open. And like you say, from organizers of marathons or representation through, obviously the great sponsorship you have and their support of you and who you are. And you're not only, just a runner, and you're doing so many other things. And I'm so pleased that they give you that time and space to do things. And I think other people listening, if you check out Rising Hearts and you feel like doing a run, if you're a runner or you're just not like me, you could just even walk it. Even if you can't,
you can bike it too,
or whatever you're able to do. I would love you spoke a little bit in your wellness series about talking about safety and talking about whether that's being a runner within the safety of that as a woman of color, but also just maybe your day-to-day life. I would love to hear a little bit about your experience, both in your career as an athlete and just day-to-day, your experience of racism in North America and community organizing too, like if that has, or even your time in DC, just your experience of that through all these different kind of avenues that you work in.
Yeah, I mean, providing these opportunities to work with Cola Thompson, who leads these teachings, safety planning and training, it's really rooted to help arm us and protect us on the preventative side from violence, from potential danger. And we were both like really motivated to create this opportunity, especially with wellness platform that I have, for MMIW awareness. But also, it can be for anybody, women and men. And it's just something that we can have in our own toolbox, that in case that moment does happen, in case we are in danger, we know how to respond. And hopefully when things are more safe out of this pandemic, to actually do in-person, trainings that we can experience and to learn from. And it's just really important to have this knowledge and to make sure that we have a plan, that the moment we leave out our door, there's a plan. And she sums it up perfectly. The end of the day, that goal should be, how do I make it back home safely? And that really struck a big chord for so many that signed up for her class. And so many people attended, and it was so much to reflect on. And, I've experienced as a runner, the typical catcalling, really weird people in their cars just following back and forth slowly and like making me feel uncomfortable. And so that's led to me having to run with, lights or safety vests, or running with my phone, which I really hate it. And having to share my location with my partner because he also is uncomfortable, because now that he's been more exposed to the work that I do, and because I am building a platform where I am in the public, he gets really worried for me, and same with my parents. And so it's doing something like that, carrying pepper spray, carrying like a portable hand size like taser just in case that I have to run with. And this situation can happen anywhere, not just within running. And this situation, this danger, poses a threat even in the community organizing, because there is anti-racism, because there is racism very present, and white supremacy, especially when we come out of our own safety of our home, we are potentially putting ourselves at risk to these dangers. And so having these teachings offered is just an opportunity for everyone to have that tool in their toolbox, and to be able to act quickly and respond in case something does happen, to have basically a phone tree system of people that can be notified, and other methods that can be included as part of that plan. And so it's really important to me. I feel like we don't have enough in place to help these situations after they've happened. We know how to respond in kind of a rapid response. But I feel like we can do so much more on the preventative side. And this is just one way that we can offer that.
Yeah, it's that preventative, it's in the moment, and then it's afterwards. I think if something must happen, an experience like that, it's like how you heal from that, and how you continue to run, how you continue to go into those spaces is also kind of part of that. I'm sure, like, and I guess that's community always. It's like how much you can heal through just sharing those stories with other people, or having a space like the series you've created so that people can share experiences they could have had that have felt kind of violent towards them, or just also similarly, having a teacher and teachers, practitioners that feel like them, and they can be role models, I think, too, for. It's so great that you had your family, but they were obviously into running and really inspired you into that practice. But I'm sure for so many people, they are yet to know maybe that they want to be a runner one day. But it's seeing themselves represented, on the front covers of, running magazines, or kind of competing at the Olympics, things like that. It's just like so powerful for people to see themselves in people, and be kind of inspired to be someone, I think. My next question was, yeah, a little bit more about how I guess people can be involved not only in Rising Hearts, but maybe just in their like awareness and being more mindful of the lands they live and walk on, whether or not that's because they're real outdoors people and they love to run and climb and hike, or whether that's just living, you know, in North America, like how to be, just to be, yeah, to be mindful, respectful, and make sure that actually change happens beyond just us being aware. I think that's always obviously the first step, but like, how do we take that further?
Yeah, you can always follow Rising Hearts on Instagram. It's at rising_hearts. And definitely pay attention to the content that we put out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's whatever we put out are events for everyone to participate in. And pay attention to the accounts that we share, the other voices that we share. Follow intersectional environmentalists. And follow International Indigenous Youth Council of LA, follow Unity Runners, Run for Brianna. There are so many accounts and others that we can do our part in elevating and learning from and supporting. And so I'm always a big advocate of just always promoting other people, which is why I'm talking about other voices and accounts to follow, because, you know, at the end of the day, that's how we build community. That's how we can create this change. And so stay tuned for more events. We're going to be hosting another virtual running event come May to help raise awareness about the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, which is May 5th. We're going to be organizing some virtual panel sessions to learn from subject matter experts and from families, while also hosting another virtual event with other partnering organizations. And so those are all opportunities for you to join, to be able to learn about what is happening, what we're organizing about, talking about. And, you know, you can always follow me if you like. I'm always a person that's growing. I always love sharing other resources and getting other voices and issues heard. So you can always follow me and stay tuned to all of the highlights that I save. Anything I usually save, I'll always try and save it to the highlights. So that there's informative content that's out there for you. You can always go to my personal website, jordanmariedaniel.com, or you can go to risinghearts.org. Amazing resources. And if you are a runner or new to running, and especially if you want to learn how to intersect a running platform with something that you care about, we're launching the Running with Purpose Community Club team. And so I know I am not the only prayer runner. I have learned from many others, and there are so many other athletes that use their platform to talk about these issues and what they fight for and run for, and what they do. And so we'll be accepting applications for the first cohort of 25 athletes, where you can learn from others that have been doing this their whole life or more recently, or for those that want to learn how to do this. And my running sponsors are going to help with some of the apparel and the shoes so that everyone gets taken care of. It's going to look like a Zoom monthly calls to talk about what we're each doing in our own community, what we can be learning, and then working with Elite Feats to organize a virtual run for everyone in their own community, so that one, they're raising the funds that they need either for their own organization or to support those that they support. So I'm really excited for that, and it's a great opportunity. And yeah, those are just all the ways that you can stay in touch, stay tuned. I have a volunteer assistant that helps me out a lot. And so there is contact information in there. So if you ever have any questions or would like to know more information or partner somehow or collaborate, you can definitely visit those contact informations on the website.
Yeah, wonderful. That sounds really great, that new program you're doing, so many different webs. I'd love to also just finish a little bit about yeah, what brings you hope and joy day to day in your life, in kind of in all scales of things, even the small little things. I think it's always nice to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love reading. I love watching or having anything to do with Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian series.
Yeah.
That's always good medicine. But yeah, just, you know, trying to have virtual conversations with friends to see their faces is like really helping me get through, you know, this hard time that we're all experiencing. Really love just going for runs. That's what helps me. And going camping, and cuddles with this guy right here.
Oh,
This is
teeny happy.
Oreo.
Oreo, that's such a good name.
Yep, little Oreo.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's my partner being with family and just doing as much as I can to disconnect from the work and
Hmm.
going to therapy and practicing my own self-care and self-healing.
Hmm.
Healing's not linear. I have a long way to go and figuring it all out, but it's just these little things that bring me joy and bring me peace and enjoy coffee. My favorite snack is
Oh, me too.
popcorn. So those are the things that bring me joy.
Yeah, wonderful. I'd say as well, one thing that I know I said in the questions that we didn't mention so much, I'd love just to also add a little bit about like how, I mean, you obviously have in sort of the way that you talk about running is running in prayer and running as medicine. I'd love to also just go back to that question a little bit about sort of how and what that means for you and for your relatives and for your sort of tradition, spirituality. I think for some people they may see that and sort of can't imagine what that feels like to
Hmm.
run in prayer and run as medicine. I'd love if you could maybe just say a little bit about that too.
Yeah. Yeah. First, Indigenous cultures, we've had running in our history for forever. That's how we carried messages.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's about being incredibly intentional in that space in offering prayers because it's not just something to just do. It's for me when I'm creating those prayers and finding the names of who I want to run for, it's doing the research and having to sit with that knowledge and that, heartache, reading the articles, learning the details, sadly, of like what
Mm-hmm.
happened to them. So having to sit with that in my head and in my heart and in my body already makes me coming into that running space feeling really heavy and emotional. And it's just about setting the intentions of that space is meant for them, for these prayers, for them to be carried to them. Um, and that it's not about me. You can't center yourself in that moment, in that run at all. This space is for them, for their families, for who you're praying for.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, while I still have my ambitions of trying to get that qualifying time and make that platform, I trust the process and the coaching and the training that I'll be able to figure it out. But right now, I'm still figuring it out. That's why I'm in therapy. That's why I'm really focusing on wellness and these practices because at the end of 2019, I had done several prayer runs. I think it was over 100 miles worth of prayers for a missing and murdered Indigenous relative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really suffered mental health wise and was suffering from depression, insomnia, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and got an injury. And so I've been learning, like I said, healing is not linear. So I've been learning how to be able to do this in a good way, especially
Mm-hmm.
for me physically and emotionally, while still being able to be intentional because it is, for me, it is serious. And this means more to me than anything. And being able to share this platform and dedicate these spaces for them, that's all that I want to do. And running is really the only thing I really know how to do. And so being able to share both of those, advocacy and running, and to intersect in the way that I do, I'm just really grateful that I can. And I want to keep doing it as long as possible, maybe until, racism and this violence doesn't exist anymore. But I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime. So I
Mm-hmm.
may be doing this for forever. And so that's what it means to me. And I take it incredibly seriously. And there are certain ways that I go about before I start my prayer run. There are certain things that I do to get ready. And then there are certain things that I do even after. And sometimes it takes days for me to recover from it.
Mm-hmm.
And having to work with my therapist on this and working with my family and being more communicative with them about what's going on with me and how I'm feeling has been really helpful in this process because in 2019 I didn't talk to anybody. So I was
Mm-hmm.
just sitting with all of this
Mm-hmm.
heartache and trauma and everything. So it's incredibly important if someone is wanting to prayer run and try and do the same thing, please definitely take care of yourself because this is serious and it is really it is heavy and emotional. But at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about who you're praying for and who you're trying to support and elevate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's important to be supported during that time, whether that's through sharing with others or through therapy. But that dedication and practice is really beautiful, and it's really wonderful to hear. And I can imagine, yeah, the research that goes into it can be confronting and difficult, and even I'm sure whilst you're running, there's a kind of,
Yeah.
you're literally going and feeling all of everything that you've been reading for that particular person or people's, you know, I think that must be quite a high intensity beyond the physical
Yeah.
experience of running. But thank you so much. It's been really, really wonderful to hear more about your work and what inspires you. And I hope we've inspired, I'm sure we have, lots of people. And I'll put in the caption, the connection to both yourself and Rising Heart, so people know to where to find you.
Awesome. Lila
Yeah.
Palamayeye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful birthday.
Thank you, and happy early birthday.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.